We are people brought to life in Jesus. It's God's grace in us. It's not our own effort. And we're made spiritual family by Jesus. So we relate to each other in different ways. We relate because we have been bonded by the gospel. Who together practice the way of Jesus. That's spiritual transformation, right? For the glory of God and the good of our neighbors. How we steward this mission is a critical aspect of our faithfulness. So today, on behalf of our elders, I want to bring to you a vision for how we sense the Lord calling us to enhance, to deepen, and to expand the work that God has been doing in this body. In 2015, a group of pioneers, what we call pioneers, launched what was then known as Fellowship Pellissippi. For some of you OGs, you might affectionately call it Fellowsippi. For 6 years and nearly 300 Sundays, we unpacked a trailer and turned Carnes High School into our church's gathering space. Matter of fact, some of you may have noticed, those of you kind of detail-oriented, that the trailer is no longer sitting out in the parking lot. It's because another church plant that started in February, March of this year is using the trailer we used for 6 years to launch their new church in Clarksville, Tennessee. So that trailer's work goes on. In the spring of 2021, so just 3 years ago, we moved into this space. We needed a place where we could focus on building into our people and building our mission. A permanent space would allow us to redirect the energy we're using for setup logistics at the high school and move them into the refining of our vision and the building of our ministries. It also allowed us, quite frankly, to recover from the toil of COVID. And so if you've been here for a while, you know that we have begun to stretch the constraints of this place. Most Sundays, people are parked all over the place in the grass. I'm so super grateful for your flexibility to do that. Most Sundays, we set up extra seats. Last week, Easter Sunday, we had the largest attendance ever this church has had in 8 years. We estimate about 450 people came onto this property over the course of 2 services. When you leave and go out that way, you know the Lord has blessed us with an abundance of children, to which praise be to God, to have the opportunity to partner with parents week after week and to steward the responsibility of discipling them and pointing them to Jesus. What a gift. What a privilege. So as our elders and staff have prayed and strategized and dreamed about the best way to continue to steward our mission, we've come to the unified conclusion that it's become time to begin to search for a property that will accommodate not just the numerical growth of our church, but the functional growth that we want to see in our spiritual formation ministries that are at the heartbeat of our church. And because I'm super creative, I have dubbed this the Future Facility Initiative. Neil Anderson and some of his team have some guides. We're going to pass these out now. This is our future facility vision. And it also includes an important insert about prayer. You guys can begin to pass those out. There should be enough for every family unit. I think we've got 100 of them. It's also going to be available on our website. While they're passing those out, this photo is of some metaphorical significance. Does anyone know what this is a photo of? I'll give you a hint. It's in the Appalachian Mountains nearby. Anybody want to venture a guess? This is Newfound Gap. Speaking of creative branding, do you know why Newfound Gap is called Newfound Gap? Well, for hundreds of years, it was thought that the lowest path through what we call the Smokies from North Carolina to Tennessee was a little path known as Indian Gap. And then in 1872, this new pass here was discovered and measured and determined to be the lowest and most drivable path through the Appalachian Mountains. So they named this newly found gap, Newfound Gap. There you go. Use that in some trivia. But here's kind of the metaphorical significance of it. For decades, pioneers with a vision for new life and new futures would pass through that gap to this place on an adventure. And it was an adventure built a lot on faith because they didn't know what was coming. You and I, here at Fellowship West, we had a starting place. And Carnes High School was a wonderful starting place for us. They still call us almost every month for assistance in some way. We are now and have been in our building place where we have solidified who we are as a church. Our congregation is deepened in who we are to one another. And we've kind of moved past the launching phase. We're an established church with ministries and leadership and so forth. But now we sense that God is asking us to take steps of faith to where our growing place will be. And so I've given you this document to look at, and I want to just explain a few things in here. We wanted to share with you a little bit about the why that we've prayerfully considered. If you've been around here for very long, you know that we do not focus a lot on numerical metrics. It's not that they're unvalued, they do help you strategically, but from the day we began, we have not been about how can we grow something that's big, how can we become famous. That's never been our mission. We have been about discipleship and spiritual formation. Then God, whatever you want to do, we're open-handed for it. But healthy things grow. And as our church has been, by God's grace, a healthy congregation, again, we had around 450 people last week. We have about 375 active participants at our church. That means sometime over the course of a month, around 375 people will engage in our church in some way. And so there's some limitations to this building that was not designed for that many people. But we also believe there are some capacity opportunities, not just limitations. And one of the things that we have really desired to be is to not be a Sunday-centric church that's just about sermons and songs, but we want to enhance our ability to do all sorts of circle gatherings and men's events and women's discipleship and student ministry and trainings and membership, and to do things simultaneously that we're just limited in being able to do here. There's some location limits, you know. During the week, Solway, Oak Ridge Highway is super busy, and it can be really hard to get in and out. And so we've kind of listed some of the reasoning. But what I really want you to see today and just spend a little time on is the what and the how. We're going to look for a space, and we're open-handed about how this space may come, where we can have 350 to 500 people, which will allow our church to effectively grow. But we want a spacious lobby space so people can have great conversations. We want gathering space so people can sit in circles. We want a safety-oriented space for our kids. Again, we want multiple medium-sized gatherings, and we want adequate parking access from the roadways. Those are the practical things. This is interesting. Some of you are looking at those numbers at the location, and you're like, oh, they just made up some generic numbers. No. Our congregation literally is 60-20-20. There is one more person in our database that has an address who lives in the Oak Ridge, Clinton area versus the greater Knoxville, Farragut, Lenore City, Bearden, et cetera. Most of you live in 37931 or 37932, and so we want to be sensitive and find a space that is accessible to the people who call Fellowship West their home. Now, how are we going to get there? Today, the most important thing we're going to do is initiate 21 days of prayer and fasting. It is God who has brought us here for 8 years, and it is God who will lead us in the next 8 years. We need God not only for provision, but we need God for wisdom. We need God for guidance. We need God for reproof, for correction, to keep us on task. And so I want to invite you to take significant time over these next few days to carve out some time in your day to pray. I'm even going to invite you to consider some form of a fast. If you go to the website, fellowshipwest.org/21days, there's a brief podcast episode there where Casey and I talked about fasting in different ways to fast. The next 2 Wednesdays, this Wednesday and the following Wednesday, that's the 10th and 17th, I believe, we're going to open the auditorium up from noon to 1, and we'll have some music. We'll have some guides. If you want to come into this space and just pray in that time, we would love to invite you to participate with us in those days. But we recognize that, like, the space is just a resource, that our ministry is so much more than that. So our 21 days of prayer is really a comprehensive way for you to pray everything from kids ministry to evangelism in the community to global missions to the team that we're going to build to help us find this space, to our worship team and so forth. Every day, an opportunity for you to pray in that spirit. We really want you to pray with us. This is the most important thing. This has been a work of God, and it will continue to be a work of God. Phase 2 is we will begin to solidify, equip, and empower our future facility task force. I know very little about real estate, about finance, about construction, and a bazillion things. The good news is God has given us a diverse congregation with lots of gifts. And we've already begun to work, and Neil Anderson is going to lead this team, a group of members in our church who have skills, experience, and knowledge with things like real estate, finance, design, and so forth, and they're going to help us. And so over the next month or 21 days, we're building that team. Then we're going to bring that team before you so you can know who they are and you can pray for them. And that team is going to be key in helping us forge the future. Phase 3 is a season of searching and building. Like, Brad, what's the level of intensity here? Here's the thing. We're not going to do anything unwise. We're going to be patient. We're going to trust the Lord, but we're also going to be really aggressive and say, Lord, we're not going to be passive. We want to participate in what you're doing. So we're going to be deliberate in looking for all sorts of property and building options. We're going to begin to look for, identify potential buyers for our current facility. We're going to launch a preliminary funding campaign, and we're going to continue to steward the formation and growth at West and develop creative solutions for our space challenges while we remain here. And then we're going to trust that that process will reveal some option for us, and our elders and our future facility task force will then present those option or that option to the congregation for you guys to vote, and we'll begin a capital campaign in earnest if necessary. I would assume that it would be, and begin the process of selling or leasing this facility. This all is open-handed, right? This is how we have kind of prayerfully and strategically thought, hey, this feels like a wise, appropriate, spirit-led way to move forward. We don't know what the Lord has for us. It's an adventure. We're going through a new gap. We're going through a new path in a new season. We don't know what's on the other side of it, but here's who we do know is on the other side of it, our Heavenly Father, who's always looking out for us, and we're going to trust Him and walk with Him, and you guys are going to participate in that. I'm really excited about what the Lord is leading us. Now, we're going to end today. And by the way, if you got any questions with this, see Neil, see me. Most of every question you could ask right now is probably right in here, but happy to answer anything else. Our team will begin to meet on a regular basis, and we'll begin to provide updates to the website that you guys can stay up to date on this search and how it goes. But I think it's important for us to remember as we conclude today that the church has never been nor ever will be a building or a place. Spaces, buildings, they are important. They are important resources, their identity in your community, but they are merely tools to steward. The church has been and always will be a people to belong to. And communion is our monthly reminder of that truth.